Okay, we're going to continue learning about this acronym, New Start, as we learn or remind ourselves of the importance of holistic living, being complete in God and healthy in these four avenues, our mind, our body, our spiritual life, and our heart, our emotions. We've learned that we can be holistic. We've learned that we have to sacrifice some things in order to reach that goal, but we can do so by the mercies of God. We've learned that we must start somewhere. We might as well start immediately, right now. Delay is the work of the devil. We don't want to delay. And then we got into nutrition last time, the N of New Start, and we learned how nutrition works with each four parts of who we are. Do you remember the Super Bowl commercials where right after the game, the champion or the MVP, one of the players of the team, is asked what they're going to go do next, and they say, we're going to Disneyland? You see that theme also with Olympians. Olympians who will win a gold medal or win several gold medals, and then after their last race or whatever they're competing in, they're usually asked, what are you going to go do now? I've noticed that a lot of them will say, I'm going to go have some fast food. Olympians or athletes are willing to make sacrifices to be at the best of their sport, at the best of their game. They want to be in their prime, doing their best. And for example, Michael Phelps said he was going to McDonald's, that he hadn't had McDonald's in like 8 or 9 years of training. And so he was heading out to get a fish fillet, I think is actually what he said he was craving. They're willing to make sacrifices for the ultimate purpose. You know, I really believe that no one who conditions themselves for holistic living will be disappointed at the end of the race. No way, not at all. We will not be, especially if we do it by the mercies of God. So here's a verse for contemplation today. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Again, we're sticking with the writings of Paul here. He says this in verse 24 and 25. Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may obtain it. You know, thinking about that Olympic kind of athlete, you know, you've got this sprint, this run, this swim. Everyone is competing. Everyone has been training. Everyone has been working hard and very diligent. Every person has been disciplined. Every person is trying to be one step, one stroke faster than you. Everyone's trying to be number one. And then we go to life, and many times we settle. We're just okay with whatever it is. We can't settle. He's saying, run in life as if you were trying to obtain a prize. Well, we know what the prize is, and that's eternity with God. We should live our lives in accordance to that goal, and run. He says everyone runs, so you should run with a goal of being number one. In other words, being complete. Let's keep reading. And everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. We'll talk about temperance later on. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we for an imperishable crown. Think about those athletes, right? What's going to happen to those gold medals in the end? Peter says that even the elements, the metals, the gold, the silver, the bronze, etc., will melt with a fervent heat. We've seen Super Bowl champs or World Series champs who burn out right after, and all. You know, we've seen athletes who are retired and heard stories of how broke they are, or celebrities. You know, you see all these things that people work so hard for. We've seen top CEOs or bosses of other of agencies or entities. We see that, you know, they get caught up in adultery or lying or stealing or money laundering. So often people do whatever they can to be number one in their job, in their world, in their community. And that's all perishable, temporary stuff. We should be running and practicing temperance and exercising for the eternal crown. He continues in 26, therefore I run thus, not with uncertainty. Thus I fight not as one who beats the air. But, verse 27, I discipline my body and bring it into subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I myself should be disqualified. Paul is saying, I'm doing everything possible to be complete. He's talking about his physical life, his spiritual life, his mental capacities, and his emotional life as well. He's trying to say, I want to be complete for you, church, so that we can be complete together. Paul desires us to be whole and to practice holistic living. So let's get into the E today. Exercise. Exercise. Everybody's favorite word, I'm sure, right? Not all of us get to do it enough. My personal issues are on the road a lot, behind a desk a lot, and I have to be purposeful. I have to make sure that I pick a time and say, I am going to exercise at this time. Whatever that time is, I look at my day and say, at this time. And life throw a curveball, life will throw a screwball. As we've learned, the devil doesn't want us holistic, and so he tries to delay us. And I don't always overcome, but we've got to overcome and say, all right, if I can at this moment, then at this moment, I'm going to go exercise. Now, of course, I'm talking about physical exercise, so let's start there. We all know, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, we know that we need, at least 30 minutes of activity a day. Just in case you don't know, activity, that means our heart is moving quicker than it is if we're sitting still. So we've got to get up and do something. Start somewhere. Maybe that is walking, down the street and back. Maybe it's a slow jog. Maybe like me, you've got knees that hurt and the running and the jogging don't help very much. And so you swim, lift some weights. I've encouraged a lot of people, even if you're going to be sitting there watching something, have a dumbbell in your hand. If you're going to watch something, do some lifts, do some presses and things like that if you can while you're watching something. So you want to exercise that body. If you really are, you really just want to start somewhere, just do some stretching. Even if you don't quite get to the exercise, then do some stretching. That'll be really good for you too. There are some really great apps, and I won't go all into it because they're not sponsoring me, but there's some really great apps on smartphones for exercises, for workouts, for cardio, for stretching, even some stretches, some ones that deal with stretching. Do something to get that body moving, right? We want to get our heart pumping, but if you're not quite there yet, get up and do some stretches, all right? How about exercising our mental capabilities? Well, watching TV numbs our mental capabilities, right? And I'm not saying never watch anything, but we've got to limit what we're doing. Video game playing, I know there's probably people who will debate this. It's good for some dexterity in your hands, but really, unless it's a video game where you're processing puzzles and things, it's really not a whole lot of exercising the mind. It's really living in another world, and that person is running around, or that thing is running around chasing people, or playing football, or Call of Duty style stuff, or whatever. We've got to be exercising our mind. So do some puzzles. I talked last time about some slide puzzles I'm doing and some memorizing I'm doing. All of that exercises your mind, right? Push your mind. Try to recall a memory. Sit down and try to recall a memory of the past and try to remember every little detail. It's exercising the mind, right? All those memories are in there. Why do we forget? We don't think about it for a long time, and soon that memory fades, but it's still in there. So sit down, have some, be drinking some water, or having some tea, and just sit there and recall old memories, recall old memory verses, recall the names of teachers from school. Just do things that will exercise that mind for at least a few minutes each day. How about exercising our spiritual life? Well, that comes back to those disciplines. We definitely need to pray, and we need to be purposeful in our prayer time. We need to be focused on what we're praying about. And so prayer journal sometimes can really help. Have a page where you have your prayer requests, And then another page where you're writing prayer, answers to prayer. And so you're seeing these things and you're warming your heart with, oh yeah, that's right. I did ask for that and I did get that. I did need this healing and I received this healing, or whatever the answer to prayer was. Write it down so you can review it sometimes. There's some really great videos if you don't know what Acts praying is: adoration, confession, thanksgiving, and supplication. There's some really great videos online. If I remember, I'll actually post a link down below for this one, because my friend Mario Navarro did a really wonderful video on Acts prayers, and that's exercising that prayer life of making sure that I'm praising God for Him being who He is, confessing my sins, thanking God for the things I have in this life, even if it's not a lot, I've got something from Him. And then supplication, the supplies we need, the requests we have for Him. So Acts praying is a great way to exercise your prayer life. So it's not just, thank you for this day, thank you for our lives, thank you for this food, amen. And some people I know pray like that, and that's okay, that's a good start. But we want to exercise our prayer life so it gets more. Exercising in the Word. So it's not just reading a devotional thought, not just reading a verse here or there. Those are good, that's reading. But then there's study. Exercise those tools. Dive in a little deep if you have a question. Now, why in the world is Paul talking about striving for a crown? What were crowns back then? That's actually a really interesting study. I don't have time right now, but check into that. Go study. What were crowns like in the day of pagan Rome, right? Back in this is probably 40, 50, 60 AD or so that he's writing this. And so go dive in, get into the context, get into the passage, get into what's going on, who's saying it, who they're speaking to. That's the way to exercise our spiritual life. And then, of course, go do the things that you learn, go apply them to your life, exercise in that way. It's a great way for spiritual discipline, spiritual exercise. Last, I want to talk about exercising our emotional well-being. We have ways we can exercise that emotional life. Number one, let's say it's anger we're dealing with. Well, practice those exercises to calm down. Take deep breaths. Go for a walk. The sun is amazing. And we'll get to the sun here later in this series too, but the sun can do major things for our anger, our stress. I mean, just a few minutes in the sun can just change how we're feeling. So we'll talk more about that later. But practice those things, exercise those things of, I'm feeling really stressed. Exercise being cognizant of it, realizing it. Oh, my chest is getting tighter, and I can feel my blood pressure boiling, and start to practice recognizing it so that you can be proactive and not reactive. Right? We don't want to lose our temper, scream a whole lot, and then calm down. We want to get to that point where we can calm down before we lose our temper. If it's depression we're thinking about and we're struggling with, remember I've already talked about that, so if you missed it, go back one. I know sometimes we need extra help with depression, that's okay. But, practice when you're feeling down, writing, a journal. Write down all the things you're thankful for. Call somebody who maybe is not doing as well as you. Call them and talk to them about good things. Practice looking for the good things to find joy in. Spend time with children. Spend time with the elderly. Spend time. And as you exercise by taking care of others, many times we feel a blessing for ourselves. Practice being positive. That is really difficult for a lot of us. And then it's difficult for all of us at least sometimes. We want to be optimistic, see the bright side, even in challenges, right? Just like we just read, you're going to run a race. Well, guess what? As you run the race, you're going to get tired. Things are going to cramp. As you train, you've got to make sacrifices. You're going to get injuries. You're going to stumble sometimes. You're going to fall sometimes. You're going to have days where your speed of a race or a swim is slower than the last day, and then you pick it back up the next day. There's going to be trials and tribulations, but hang in there. Keep working. Be optimistic. Remember that you're on a long path. You've got some steps to take. Take these steps forward. So practice being optimistic. Purposeful with this. And that's really the key here to all of exercise. Be purposeful. So if there's something bad going on, if dinner is burned or whatever, stop. that's the problem you got to handle. We can't be optimistic and naive and just, nope, no issues. We'll eat this burnt dinner. It tastes delicious. No. Throw it out, but stop for a moment and think about any blessings you have at that moment. Look at the positive side of things, right? Whatever that is in each situation. So we want to exercise these things. Exercise means practice, be purposeful, be focused on it, and realize, okay, this is how I need to be thinking. This is what I need to be doing. This is how I need to be feeling, or this is how I need to be moving my muscles right now. So let's exercise things because we have an eternal crown, and it's coming soon because Jesus is coming soon.